Hey everyone, Film Bird here. If you're into watching movies, collecting physical media, or just chirping about the films you love, then you're in the right place. Today we are diving into Beetlejuice, Tim Burton's long-awaited sequel to the 1988 cult classic. After 36 years, the ghost with the most is back on the big screen. But the real question is, did we actually need to bring him back from the afterlife? Or should we have just left him buried in the past? Let's find out.
It's showtime.
Let's be honest, the original Beetlejuice from 1988 was a damn near perfect film and helped solidify Tim Burton's unique style. It's considered his seminal work because it successfully blended macabre elements with humor, using dark and quirky characters, amazing practical effects, and unique stop-motion animation. These elements became signature to Burton's style and marked his rise as a filmmaker capable of turning the strange and eerie into mainstream entertainment. The balance of oddball charm and horror comedy made Beetlejuice an iconic cult classic that still resonates today.
Beetlejuice has undeniably left its mark on pop culture. Even people who haven't seen the film would likely recognize Beetlejuice. I mean, how can you forget a face like this? Although the film doesn't explicitly tie into Halloween, its focus on ghosts, the afterlife, and supernatural occurrences has made it a spooky season staple. The Beetlejuice franchise expanded beyond the original film, spawning a 90s animated series, which I fondly remember watching on Saturday mornings as a kid, and even a Broadway musical adaptation in 2018. There was even a script written for an unmade sequel back in the 90s titled Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Yeah, kind of cringe, but I think it could have been fun if they gave Beetlejuice some added screen time and leaned more into campy horror elements. Beetlejuice's iconic black and white striped suit and wild antics, Lydia Dietz's goth persona, and the memorable Harry Belafonte dance scenes remain highly recognizable and celebrated even after 36 years. So much so that fans still show up to screenings dressed as the characters. The film's influence is evident and proves that Beetlejuice still haunts pop culture in the most delightful way possible. Fast forward to the present day, and Burton has resurrected the powerful nostalgia of Beetlejuice with a new legacy sequel. It's not an easy feat for an artist to revisit a project from over 3 decades ago and be expected to improve upon it in a way that satisfies everyone. Tim Burton had the tough job of balancing the original characters we've grown to love with something fresh for a modern audience, without falling into the trap of being reductive or repetitive. There's a clear line between paying respectful homage and creating a soulless cash grab. And yeah, Burton has definitely succeeded in getting our money. This movie pulled in over $100 million in its opening weekend alone. But the big question remains, did Beetlejuice respect the characters that we grew up with? Or did it just cash in on our nostalgia? Well, I kind of think it did both.
Here's a preview. Be warned, it's intense.
A quick synopsis from Rotten Tomatoes tells us that Beetlejuice is back. After an unexpected family tragedy, 3 generations of the Dietz family return home to Winter River. Still haunted by Beetlejuice, Lydia's life is turned upside down when her rebellious teenage daughter Astrid discovers the mysterious model of the town in the attic, and the portal to the afterlife is accidentally opened. With trouble brewing in both realms, it's only a matter of time until someone says Beetlejuice's name 3 times, and the mischievous demon returns to unleash his very own brand of mayhem. Beetlejuice is far from perfect. The film moves at a quicker pace than the original, and introduces many characters and subplots, which can make it feel a little messy and chaotic at times. Some characters feel underdeveloped too, and there are a lot of them. This leaves limited time to explore their character arcs fully. My biggest disappointment, though, was the absence of the Maitlands, played by Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin in the original movie. I really loved their characters,
particularly how they dealt with the existential dread of being dead and trapped in their house for the next 125 years. I get the need to move beyond their storylines since they were such a central focus in the first film, but it still would have been great to check in with them, even briefly. It's interesting that they chose to bring Lydia's dad back into the mix, even though he's headless this time around, played by Jeffrey Jones in the original. I'll spare you the details, but you might want to Google Jeffrey Jones criminal case if you're curious. Yikes. Still, despite a few shortcomings, I had a blast returning to Winter River and revisiting the afterlife with the new and returning characters. Creating a legacy reboot is always tricky, but I think Burton made a strong effort at balancing such a tall order.
The key to enjoying this movie is managing your expectations. Nostalgia is a powerful thing and could lead to unobtainable hopes. If you go into this movie expecting it to perfectly recapture the magic of the original, then you might be setting yourself up for disappointment.
Personally, I love the original Beetlejuice and knew that nothing was going to surpass it in my mind. So I approached this sequel with low expectations. The initial trailers didn't fill me with much confidence, but I wasn't ready to completely write it off either. In the end, all I really wanted was a fun experience that respected the original without tarnishing it, and thankfully that's what I got. The movie moves at a quick pace, with a fast narrative that some critics have called messy and overstuffed. While I can see where they're coming from, I don't entirely agree. One of the strengths of the original movie was its gradual world building.
That's the Lost Souls room. A room for ghosts that have been exorcised. Good devils.
Pulling viewers deeper into the strange and mysterious afterlife. The sequel, on the other hand, hits the ground running because it doesn't need to reintroduce the world. It assumes you're already familiar with it. Instead, the sequel expands this universe with a variety of side characters and subplots that intertwine and collide as the story unfolds. Through these sub-narratives, we explored new and exciting corners of the afterlife, which has always been my favorite part of the franchise. Despite the faster pace, I never felt lost. We even got a little added mythology to Beetlejuice's backstory in a quirky black and white flashback with Italian subtitles. A definite nod to the great Italian director Mario Bava.
While many of the characters in Beetlejuice don't contribute heavily to the main plot of the movie, I do still think that they help expand the film's universe in a fun and imaginative way. These characters introduce fresh dynamics and quirky interactions that bring us to unexplored corners of the afterlife.
Some new characters include Danny DeVito in a small role, no pun intended, as a grumpy blue-skinned janitor who meets his demise way too soon. Willem Dafoe plays Wolf Jackson, a hilariously deceased B-movie star turned afterlife detective investigating supernatural crimes. I thought he was hilarious and loved his character design, which had half of his blue brain exposed, making me think of Frank Henlonder's Brain Damage. Monica Bellucci plays Dolores, a soul sucker, who is hell-bent on revenge and disposes of her victims by, you guessed it, sucking their soul through their mouth, leaving a scrunched-up pile of rubber-like flesh on the ground. I won't spoil anything, but I loved how her character comes to be on the screen. Dolores also acts as our obligatory corpse bride, as we can't have a Burton movie without one of those.
One of my favorite things about this sequel is that it still used practical effects that made the original so memorable and inventive.
I love that Burton embraced those old school techniques, from puppetry to stop motion, giving the film a tactile, lived-in quality that enhances its quirky, fantastical world. There are a few scenes that use CGI effects, but it's not heavy-handed. Fans of the first movie will also appreciate the continuation of classic gags, like the iconic waiting room full of deceased souls still deformed by the way they died, which I've always found dark and playful. Watching the film felt like a return to Tim Burton's roots, and I'm thrilled to see him go back to the style and techniques that made him a unique visionary.
Winona Ryder is back as an older Lydia Dietz who has found fame as the host of a paranormal TV show called Ghost House. She is neurotic and filled with anxiety, seemingly a shell of who she once was. Honestly, I was a little underwhelmed with her character, as she seemed to be playing a version of the frazzled mom from Stranger Things.
It's also ironic that in the original movie she was an advocate and ally to the ghosts, and now her profession is centered around exploiting them. Nevertheless, it was fun to see her interactions with Beetlejuice, and I'm happy she has returned for this to keep the continuity of the character and story. I thought Jenna Ortega fit in nicely as Lydia Dietz's daughter Astrid, an angsty teen navigating a troubled relationship with her mother. I really enjoy the relationship she develops with a neighborhood boy named Jeremy, played charmingly by Arthur Conti. There is also a beautifully shot scene of Astrid riding her bike through autumn streets that stood out to me. Ortega gives the boys and girls of a younger, modern audience someone to connect with and swoon over without making her character feel out of place.
Catherine O'Hara is still hilarious, and believe it or not, I think she's funnier in this than in the original. She seems to have taken the essence of Moira Rose from Schitt's Creek and melded it with Delia Dietz, creating an even more unhinged, self-obsessed artist who is trying to turn the grief of losing her husband into her next absurd art project.
Justin Theroux is also hilarious as Rory, Lydia's sleazy LA boyfriend and producer, who you'd think would get along famously with Delia, but funny enough, she hates him. She openly shares her disdain for him, and I really enjoyed their brief exchanges throughout the movie.
In fact, I found myself laughing a lot through this movie. I don't know if it was the ice-cold adult beverages hitting me just right, but this humor worked for me. Don't mind if I do. Hot take, I think this movie might be funnier than the original. I love the witty dialogue and the absurdity of the scenarios that unfolded, especially when old BJ drops the F-bomb. Funny enough, PG-13 movies only get one of those per movie.
What the f?
And I think they used it wisely. The curse word is cleverly bleeped, and I thought that made it even funnier.
The juice is loose.
The juice is definitely still loose as Michael Keaton reprises his iconic role as Beetlejuice. With a raspier voice and the same lecherous, chaotic energy, Keaton brings back the vaudeville-style performance that made the original character unforgettable. He is outrageous, charming, and you're always excited when he pops up in the next scene. Yet despite Michael Keaton's larger-than-life performance, he doesn't overshadow the ensemble cast. After rewatching the original, it's easy to forget just how little screen time Beetlejuice actually had. He doesn't fully appear until about 40 minutes into the original movie. In the sequel, Burton finds a similar balance in keeping Beetlejuice a key part of the story without making him the sole focus. Despite this, his presence was so commanding that the character became synonymous with the entire franchise. Burton smartly avoids overusing Beetlejuice in the sequel, preserving the chaotic joy he brings whenever he shows up.
I saw this movie on opening night in a crowded theater, and I noticed a lot of younger kids in the audience that were surely born after 1988 and may not have even seen the original movie. If this movie serves as a gateway to appreciating horror comedies from the 80s, then I'd have to say I am happy they took a chance and made this movie.
Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is a worthy yet imperfect revival of a beloved classic and a fun nostalgic trip back to the wild and weird world Tim Burton first introduced us to in 1988. Burton manages to walk the tightrope between honoring the original and offering something fresh for a modern audience. While it may not reach the iconic heights of its predecessor, it succeeds in expanding the world of the afterlife in fun and creative ways, packed with quirky characters, practical effects, and plenty of humor.
If you're willing to lower your expectations a little bit and put aside your obsessive love for the original movie, then like me, you might find yourself pleasantly surprised with this one.
I gave Beetlejuice 3.5 birds out of 5. What do you think about this movie? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Leave your comments in the basement below. For more detailed reviews, be sure to follow me on Letterboxd. Link in the description.
Thank you so much for watching. This was my first video, and I really hope to make more of these. I had such a fun time making this. I really appreciate your time because we all know what a valuable commodity that is. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe. And I hope to see you again in the next video.